Welcome to State of Ed, a podcast about education inside the classroom and out. My name is Mark Isix.
And I'm Nick Simone.
How are you today, Nick?
I'm doing really well. How about you?
I'm great. This is the beginning of our, I guess we'll call it like the FETC series. We went to a conference a month ago, maybe a little bit more now, in Orlando, and we just had an extraordinary time, and we met so many incredible people, and one of those incredible people is here with us today. His name is Austin Levinson, and he is the director of learning at a company called Megaminds, and we just connected right away. And as soon as we met Austin, we were like, we absolutely have to have you on State of Ed podcast. So the day has finally arrived, Austin. So really so excited to talk to you, hear about Megaminds and your journey to this particular stage in your career.
Thanks, Mark and Nick. Great to see you guys again, and I'm proud to be the first one here after the FETC conference, and looking forward to speaking with you because I know we have a lot of things in common in terms of how we view things in education.
Not only in terms of how we view things in education, but you're also a native New Yorker, as are Nick and myself. And if memory serves, I think you and Nick were growing up maybe just a few towns apart from one another.
We're neighboring towns.
Yes, we got some people in common. Yep, geography is pretty short there.
Crosstown rivals, perhaps.
Yes, I would say so.
All right, nice, very cool. So, Austin, let's just jump into it. You're at a company called Megaminds. You're the director of learning there. So, tell us a little bit about what Megaminds is and your role there.
Sure. Well, I could start just a little bit. I mean, I was an educator for 21 years. I worked from elementary school, developing a STEAM program, to middle and high school, developing a gifted and talented program, getting into design thinking, PBL. I've always been kind of a critical thinking guy. That's always been my reason for being in the space, to teach kids to think. And now I have a chance to do that and scale that at a company where I really believe we're doing the right things for the right reasons. Megaminds is an immersive learning platform like Roblox or Minecraft, and the students interact with AI coaches to get a safe space to practice and ask for help and fail and to build their confidence and engage in productive struggle. And we do a lot of work in the CTE space and special ed, providing these simulations where students can interact and really work through some of the challenges they're facing in communications, critical thinking, problem solving.
So when did this company start?
The company is just over 3 years old. We started as kind of a digital sandbox. It was almost like a 3D Canva where students can create things in these kind of 3D rooms. VR glasses can or can't be used. It's browser based, so it's not necessary. They work on Chromebooks, but and about a year ago when I met the CEO, he had just introduced the AI coaches into the space, and it was a complete change because it really offers the students that interaction, the chance to speak, the chance to iterate on their ideas. And so we've been on the market now with the AI characters for just under a year.
That was really like where my question was going. It must be so interesting to be part of a company that started, but just before AI became so prominent. And now, as we know, it's proliferating tremendously. So I can't really imagine, like from your perspective, how that changed your role in the company.
I was able to really add a lot of critical pedagogy to the space as somebody who can think and speak about zone of proximal development, a lot of aspects that we love to think about and talk about and apply. I was able to really kind of add those elements of metacognition and reflection for the students into the modules that we have to really enhance their efficacy. And so, it's been an interesting journey, and I've had a chance to get involved with a lot of aspects of the product. Unfortunately, now we've had quite a bit of traction, and now we're in several states and a couple of statewide implementations, and things are fortunately going well because I think people are seeing that it's helping students. At the end of the day, we want to help students.
You're seeing the value in it. It's funny that you mentioned, sometimes we use this podcast as a little bit of a confessional, Austin, you should know that. So Nick and I worked on our PhDs together, and one of the psychologists that we studied was Lev Vygotsky, and Nick and I both looked at each other that first time we were introduced to some of his work, and we were basically saying, like, why has it taken us so long to get to Vygotsky in our professional careers? And I just don't remember him being a prominent part of my studies. I don't know if that's something I should admit publicly, but like I just did.
But you did.
But
Think about, I mean, it's so relevant to the work we do as professionals.
Agreed.
On our level, as well as what we're trying to incorporate with for students.
Yeah, well, we're laughing, Austin, because out of all the theorists that we did learn, he's the only one that we actually really bought into more than any other. And we felt foolish that we had never remembered him from undergrad. So the fact that you reference him, you're going way to the top of the guest list. I mean, I don't know what, what more. Yes, you could drop the mic
right there. Lev Vygotsky reference, and then you're golden here.
No, but Austin, you were kind of alluding to it. I mean, it really, we're trying so hard to get teachers to understand that, just memorizing content, those days are over. There's no need to. But there is still always a role for teachers to play in the classroom. And that's what the Zone of Prox, like kids can only do so much without that help. So that's why we just love the whole concept.
Well, I think the role has also shifted quite a bit in the last 18 months. And you both have seen it. I've seen it. As TikTok and Instagram Reels have proliferated, the engagement piece is harder and harder and more elusive. Yeah. And so to actually engage students, for example, in CTE, a lot of what you see in career exploration, they see a video of, I'm a nurse, this is what I do. That's not reaching them, and it's not valid anymore to really show what that career is. We have to find a better way for them to really engage with content, with some of the thoughts and processes that we want them to learn.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Austin, because one of the things that Nick and I have been very high on lately, I don't know if you're familiar with, is it Christina Smeckens, Nick? Is that her first name?
Yes, Christina Smeckens, yes.
So she has a whole program and a number of videos and does a lot of professional development, but the one that really got our attention talks about the difference between modeling and a think aloud. And it sounds like what you were just describing, because very often we model or we present something and we think that is communicating the idea to our students. But really what we're talking about, a think aloud, is a whole different level of cognition, a whole different level of analysis and understanding of a particular thing, a concept, an idea, a profession, whatever it may be. And she so brilliantly in this very short video, really marks the distinction between the model and the think aloud. And it really got us reflecting. And we've been talking, I mean, once Nick and I kind of hopped up on an idea, it's kind of dangerous. I feel bad for the people in our school because we just shouted from all the rooftops, but something like that can really just in a moment inform your practice and take you just to that next step, that next level as you're, continuing your evolution. Everyone's a work in progress. At least that's what we believe. So it sounds like it's very much kind of aligned with your philosophy and a little bit about what Megaminds does.
Well, it makes me think about as well, really the importance. I mean, if we're trying to promote curiosity, lifelong learning, getting messy and taking risks, we need to model that. And that's not going to come. We really need to do a think aloud. It's not going to come just by showing something. It's going to come by saying, you know what, I don't really know what to do here, to your students, to your staff. And having the courage to do that is going to show them that we are in a growth mindset as well, which is, again, easier said than done for some people. But I think it's so relevant. And it's, in my opinion, that's one of the biggest distinctions between the modeling and the think aloud, because it's going to incorporate those elements of getting messy. We need to get messy. We're getting into a world that's completely different, with AI as a big part of both in our professional lives, but also obviously education.
So Austin, who would the target audience be for Megaminds? Is it geared towards K through 12? I know obviously you said CTE is a big part of this, but do you have a specific target audience?
Career exploration really starts in middle school in many places. That's being pushed down towards middle school earlier and earlier in many states. And again, getting back to the validity, we talk a lot about validity and assessment, right? We talk a lot about, is this measuring what it's supposed to measure? Is career exploration exploring, is helping the student explore what it's supposed to? So for example, if they don't get an actual genuine career exploration experience, many of them are going to go down a path that they're not interested in. So, I mean, if there's real career exploration, say in hospitality, after watching or learning or interacting, a bunch of students should say, I never want to work in hospitality. That's valid. But if everyone says, oh, this looks pretty cool, then some students and some resources from the school are going to be wasted on things that are not really interesting to them. So I think that that's a really important bit. There's a lot of compliance going on with videos and text, but to get validity for career exploration, that's a whole different story. So that's one piece. Then the simulations that kind of follow from that in CTE are often, late middle school into high school. And then the other piece that we really are deep into is special education. We work with District 75 in New York City, and we help their transitional students really learn a lot of life skills, social skills. And then I think for the transitional students and in the CTE space, a lot of workforce readiness skills, things that used to be called soft skills, and I think everyone in this room probably calls them essential skills now. And things like a job interview and being resourceful and efficacy and note-taking and things that are going to be cross-cutting across a lot of different careers and a lot of different environments. Those are a few different areas that we work. So I would say middle and high school are the sweet spots.
You mentioned compliance. This is something that Nick and I talk about all the time. It feels like schools have been and remain in many ways optimized for compliance rather than capability. In your assessment, like what is the cost to students over the long term?
Well, I'm going to start by referencing Paul Matthews' work. He's a really interesting guy from England who has a book that he wrote about the purpose of school. In his introduction, he said, the purpose of school, unfortunately, right now, for many stakeholders, is to produce work. And the purpose of school, as I know we see it, is very different. It's to produce people that are curious, that are going to be contributing members of society. So that's, I think one piece. The second piece, I completely forgot the first question. The questions.
You can stop right there because that was so good. We could just build off of that. How is this a recent book or an older book?
It's a free book. I'll be happy to share the resource with you. Okay. I'd love to hear that resource as well that we're going to share between Modeling and Think Aloud. But it's a free resource. I can send it to you by email. But I have referenced the introduction many times. Wow. I think it's a really important frame for a lot of the work that we're doing. And I think the other piece is Dan Fitzpatrick's seminal work, Infinite Education, which you're probably familiar with. The introduction talks about how there's really been a shift from the industrial age into now the age where somebody in the corner of a Starbucks can start an enterprise. And we need to be preparing students for that, not for the content that a lot of the compliance and a lot of the curriculum is based around.
So you're really talking about adaptability, right? We're talking about
100%.
We're talking about creating programs and creating schools that are producing adaptable students. So in your experience and in your opinion, like what does adaptability actually look like in practice? Like how do you teach something that's inherently unpredictable?
Shifting sands. How do you teach that? Well, I think that there's several ways. I think that the Think Aloud is part of it, but I believe that within, for example, let's take a few examples. In project-based learning, you could add a little kicker to it. And so you could add a constraint, or you could push students out of their comfort zone. So let's take an example. There's a project and they have a choice of products. What are students going to gravitate towards right now? It's going to be a Google slide deck or Canva. I'd say by 95%, at least from my teaching experiences. If we can kind of push and prod and coax them and really model, or maybe you could say think aloud, that, I'm going to do this project as well, and I'm going to try something I've never done. And I did this recently. I did a physical map with some QR codes that led to a travel log, and it was the idea was to dig into a country, but really go deep into some of the folklore and other aspects. And so I did something I'd never done before. I'm not a good illustrator. I drew the map, and it wasn't very good. I'd never used the QR codes that printed out for something like that, so I modeled that, and I tried to get them out of their comfort zone and off the starting block. You know what? How about a podcast? I'll work on it with you. We can brainstorm together. How about instead of a Canva deck, what about if you did something that was a physical product, a physical model? So that's one piece. Another piece about adaptability, and this is something that is, in my opinion, the unspoken future skill is photography and videography. Mm-hmm. And so right now in the world, it's obviously becoming more and more important as many people producing content, and we're trying to make presentations. Let's say we take a picture and we don't like it. When we learned photography, at least I can say from when I learned photography, we developed film, and then we had to wait for it, and then we had to kind of go into it. and kind of revise it from there. Right now, we can evolve the photo as we go. So we've learned about shot composition. We've learned about lighting. And we took this shot. You know what? I want to show something different to my audience. So in each case, we have to adapt to a circumstance, to the audience. Maybe the weather conditions changed and there's no longer a shadow that we were using. And so there's a lot of adaptability in that piece that I think is one way to teach it. And that's easily applicable into pretty much any project that we're doing. And the student intrinsic motivation is out the roof. So just a couple of examples. Innovation in and of itself has adaptability built in. And so if you introduce a new tool, we spoke about this right before we started to record. I did my first Pekka Kucha, right? And it was a new presentation format for me, and I wasn't too keen on it before I did it. And you know what? I learned a lot through that process. So it's also showing the students that we're trying new things and willing to take risks and fail and reflect upon it.
For folks who don't know what a Pekka Kucha is, can you explain it?
It's a presentation format where you have 20 slides, 20 seconds each. So total is 6 minutes, 40 seconds, and the slides advance automatically. So you have to be well prepared. You have to be fairly well synchronized. The reason I wasn't keen on it is because I like to interact with the audience and get their feedback and incorporate that into what we're speaking about. In this case, it was me and Eric, the CEO of Megaminds, talking to the audience, and it was one directional. So I wasn't keen on that, but we practiced it more. We had to internalize the ideas more so we could ad-lib. There was quite a bit more, I'd say, deeper learning about the subject matter. And then there was some Q&A afterwards. That's what Pekka Kucha is.
So the constraints forced you to flex a different muscle cognitively, which is what gave the exercise its value.
Which is key for many aspects of adaptability between projects, presentations, different aspects of learning completely.
That's great.
We talk to teachers about leaving their comfort zone as well. It's not just, for students. Teachers have to be more comfortable taking risks in the classroom, especially.
And administrators. And
administrators, yes.
Yeah, so up the line, for a teacher to take more risks, maybe the administrator needs to show them that they're willing to take a risk.
Absolutely.
And
that's where it has to start. Because a teacher will not, unless they are the bravest person on the planet, take an unnecessary risk because they can only suffer.
They could be criticized by their peers.
Only
they can
backfire.
fail. Yep.
Correct. It can only backfire unless an administrator is setting a tone, creating a culture where risk-taking is actually celebrated. Flopping and failure and flop sweat are like embraced because it's just one way or one attempt to get to the thing that it's going to break through to that next level. And that has to be the mindset. I know that Nick and I live that and preach that in our school, but I know that's not necessarily the case everywhere.
And one of the ways that I've always suggested to leaders to do this in education, especially related to AI integration, is, and I've done some AI integration for schools, is at the start of the session, I always take the largest space, preferably a large piece of oak tag, and I make a giant squiggle on it. And whoever is the leader in the room, the highest leader, I say, does everybody have permission to get messy? And you know what happens invariably during the session? And then that gets hung up in the teacher's lounge. Invariably over the course of the following weeks, people walk over to it and reference, you know what? You're saying you don't want to try it. Remember, we have permission to get messy. And that visual, it's one thing to say it. The visual is a very potent way to get people off the starting block.
We're so aligned in so many ways, the three of us, Austin, because I'm a huge proponent of a visual frame. I was just working with a teacher earlier today who came in and wanted to talk about coming up with a motivational activity for her class. Her AP class is about to read The Things That Carried. And she's trying to help them understand very challenging conceptual ideas that come from that novel. And, what we were working together to try to find were like visual frames that students can place these very complex ideas onto to help them be able to understand things, sequence things, be able to go back, slow down the clock, so to speak, in their brain so they can really figure out what's what and make those kinds of cognitive advances.
It's a scaffold. It's obviously also going to help English language learners to be able to comprehend context.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a whole lot of advantages to that visual piece. And I think it adds it aerates the idea, right? It adds another element that it's not me speaking, you know what, I missed it, I wasn't paying attention, and then poof, it's gone. The visual anchors that for them. It's
I love
great
that
you're-
phrase, aerates the idea. I might be stealing that tomorrow. There's a 75% chance, but pretend I didn't tell you that. How much of the program or the application is like gamified? Because you kind of compared it to Roblox before.
Yeah. So it looks like a game. It's the same controls as a game. There's no onboarding for the majority of the students. It feels like a game in many ways, and it's definitely not a game. There are very specific learning goals in every module. There are AI coaches, and we've passed through the IRMA process in New York City, which was a several-month process. We've got everything, all our I's dotted, T's crossed in terms of data privacy, but we also have them severely guardrailed. So if the student tries to talk about something that's inappropriate, the teacher will get an alert. If they try to veer off the topic, it'll kind of get guided back. But I would say that it does have a lot of gamified aspects, but then again, within the space, so they're going to encounter several AI coaches. They're going to encounter some question marks where they have an opportunity for, in some cases, multiple choice, most of the time, free-form responses, where we can kind of uncover some of the student thinking, right, making the thinking visible. And that'll help the teachers on the back end, on the teacher dashboard. The teacher dashboard is a thought partner for the teacher. It's going to analyze all their work in the room from, and it's different than analyzing a 2D like chat, where they can analyze the chat, the time between clicks and the clicks themselves. We can analyze if a student looks at something and is using a resource. We can see that how much time they spent doing something, what they were doing in the room, all of the transcriptions with the AI coaches. All of that goes into comparing that to the learning goals of the room and giving the teachers actionable insights. So the holy grail of differentiation, which we know is so difficult,
Yes.
we're bringing it a lot closer to teachers' hands through the teacher dashboard.
I'm so glad that you said that, because one of the myths that Nick and I have been talking about for years and trying to debunk is this myth of differentiation, the way it was kind of traditionally defined, because the way modern classrooms are constructed with the range of abilities in any given classroom to truly differentiate the way it theoretically is supposed to go is borderline impossible given the constraints of a teacher's schedule, prep schedule, and so on and so forth, to do it, again, properly. But what's happening now, as AI is like absolutely crashing the party here, which is, people have a lot of feelings about that. But one of the benefits is, like, we can actually, like you're saying, get closer to sort of the pure definition of what differentiation was designed philosophically to be, because you can literally have kids working at their specific levels, and you can have 30 of them in a room, and AI affords you the opportunity to meet all those students precisely where they are, not even like broadly. And that's exciting if it's leveraged correctly, of course. It sounds like Megaminds is trying to figure out how to crack that code and help teachers and empower them to do just that.
Well, it's interesting. The director of technology for a district recently said, you're not an AI company. You're a learning platform that uses AI, but you're using it in a way that's really leading to student learning. With pride and humility, I say we won a big award at FETC. We won District Administration Magazine, which is a pretty well-read and I'd say viewed platform. We won their best student learning technology. And so I talk about that and I say, it's not a shiny AI tool. It's not AI for AI's sake. We won a prize for the best student learning. That fills me with pride as an educator, a lifelong educator, the father of 2 kids. I've got skin in the game. I've got a 12 and 8-year-old son, that we're developing something that's helping student learning. It's not about the teaching, and we all know that. I don't know, Nick and Mark, when you made the shift. For me, it was, 8-10 years ago. It's no longer about the teaching. It's all about the learning.
By the way, that's a major award, because we know what was available at FETC. So
that's right.
That's
Thank you for
tremendous. That. Yeah, no, it's tremendous. And what I was kind of getting at earlier is I'm just so intrigued by the process of how you put these simulations together. Because you were kind of alluding to it, you get the teacher perspective, but then you have to work. So do you all kind of like work together on the idea? I'm trying to understand, are they different simulations that all have to be created separately?
Each one's created individually, and the AIs are prompted with certain ways to keep the guardrails, but the AIs are prompted with different personalities. And so as they go around the room, it's really interesting to talk to them, because they get different perspectives, different voices. they can re-enter the room and the interaction will be different. Right. And so, but the room development process is very interesting. And a big piece of it is that we're not trying to get into every area. We're not trying to do everything. The through line, why CTE and special ed, what is in common? What's in common about those? Students need to practice, right? We work with, moderate to severely autistic students, and they have a simulation in class one-on-one with the teacher. They go out in the real world, or in CTE, they go to a work-based learning experience, but they have a hard time getting the vocabulary to flow, the critical thinking and problem solving around that. And I think some of the tension, Nick. So in a hospital, it's intense. A nurse's job is very intense. A teacher's job is very intense. So that's a couple of clusters that we have a lot of modules in: teacher training and nursing. We're thinking about where can we bring some of that emotion and tension into the student's experience such that they can really get a true feel what it's like and really work through with that emotion some of the thinking skills and some of the future skills needed. So I think the development is driven in somewhat by what's going to really play out properly with this idea, but also I think that we have certain guidelines that I've done a lot to develop about what are best practices for these modules and how do we best develop them for engagement and for maximizing some of these future skills that we're trying to develop. Those are, I think, two of the key criteria. And the engagement piece is just so important right now with what I call TikTok brain. You guys read the piece on brain rot and what were people talking about that a few weeks ago, and it's real. And to get to students who are getting 173 30-second videos in a day, how do you reach them now?
That's the essence
of a 1-hour lesson
yeah.
that starts very slow and boring, and that just grabs them, and then they stay with you for 60 minutes. That's
and they can flip through a slide deck, and they can watch a video, but they have student agency because they can click play on the video. I mean, what is student agency, right? And how does that relate to this? Student agency now, I think that we have to kind of up the game. And in our case, a student is physically moving around the space. They're determining where to go. There are some things hidden in the room. There's things they can click on and find clues. It's the gamification piece in a space that's definitely not a game with very clear learning goals is, I think, a really nice path to get to that engagement.
Right, because it's not a game. The gamification is their tactics. They're tactics to help move you through a certain procession of goals, objectives, maneuvers, etc. Games takes those same parameters and apply them to winning things or points or accumulating things. But you can take those same principles and apply them to learning, because what you're describing and what works in games is kind of like this real time, just in time, thinking, which is, if you've ever played like literally any game from Call of Duty to, it doesn't have to be that violent, but you're always in need of something in a particular moment, and you have to be adaptable and figure out how to acquire what you need in order to successfully accomplish something. In conventional instruction, we don't incorporate those kinds of ideals. And that creates boredom for kids, because they are not thinking about what I will need this in 2 weeks, because everything in the world now is structured in like, do I need it now? If I don't need it now, then it can wait. And when I need it, I will open up my phone and instantly have access to it. Now that's, we could talk about if that's great or that's horrible and what it's doing to our brains, but it is what's happening. It is what's happened. It's already, so we could take phones out of the classroom, and we could take anything you want, take the technology out of the classroom. It doesn't matter. The brain has already shifted. And we have to be very cognizant of that. So I know there are folks who want to turn back the clock, especially with AI now, like the chants are even louder to go back to the blue essay books that you and I had in college, right? As if that's going to stop the tide, but it doesn't. So like you said, like using AI, using technology as a learning partner is the most effective strategy, in my opinion, to leverage the technology is going to help our students, not just with us teaching, but with them learning, which is a distinction that you made just a few minutes ago. So I fully appreciate that.
And not all screen time is created equal. I mean, how are most of our students using their phones? They're on Snapchat. They're looking at TikTok videos, passive consumption, and not for things that are actually going to enhance their cognitive ability, actually develop them as individuals. And so it's, one of my family members said something about, well, it's a sign of the times. They're all just watching TikTok. I said, there's a consciousness piece, right? We try to teach our students, our children, appropriate use of it, when to use it, if we use it. Obviously an AI scale in terms of integration is key so that the students have clarity and the teachers have clarity as to when and how much AI you can use. And so there's a lot of components to it, but not all screen time is equal. And if we can find screen time that's really going to, I think, enhance critical thinking instead of being lead to cognitive offloading, that's what we want to look for. And it's not an easy ask because I think human nature and student nature, they're going to look for shortcuts. You guys know that very well.
The teachers are going to look for shortcuts too. The administrators are going to look for shortcuts too. I mean, you don't think that there are administrators out there who are putting their observation reports through chatbots and having the work done for them, and teachers are doing that with lesson planning, and students are doing that with assignments. I mean, it goes up and down. It goes up and down the line.
And there are effective places to do that to save some of the tasks that don't require the human element. But keeping the human in AI is a big part of what you guys are thinking about as well. Again, we've never spoken about it, but just from this short conversation. And so that's where we think about how does the human stay in it on the student side, on the teacher side. I think that's why that student dashboard piece becomes so key, where the teachers have the ability to then have actionable response to what the students need based upon the work that the students are doing. And that's where I think AI is being used effectively.
Can you just take us through so I can visualize it? Like what would a teacher see and what information would they get that will kind of empower them to help take their students to the next level after an activity,
Sure.
let's say?
So let's take an example. Pythagorean theorem. It's one of our modules in middle school math.
That's Nick's favorite theorem.
There you go. So you and Pythagoras alike. So they learn the Pythagorean theorem. Let's say a teacher does a mini lesson. And then for practice, instead of going into maybe a workbook or something of that nature, they're going to go into a Megaminds module. The teacher can have the dashboard open. The insights come up basically in real time. So let's say I have 30 students. I can see that, 4 of them are goofing off and just messing around with the AI. You know what? I'm going to call them over. Come on over. Obviously, it would be Nick, Mark, and Susan and Jonah. Come on over. And I'm going to show them some of their transcripts and say, this isn't how we're using this. I'm going to model it. Maybe I'm going to make a real world connection. I'm going to try to bring them in. I'm not going to wait till the next class when I see that they haven't done anything. So the immediate feedback loop is one piece. But some of the things that'll come up on the dashboard in a math room, there'll be responses to questions. And so I can see those responses so that the AI agent on the backside is already doing some of the analysis and able to help the teacher to see what are some patterns. So, okay, some of the students are squaring. Instead of squaring, they're actually just multiplying by 2 because they see the 2. You know what? Small group. Some other students are just making arithmetic errors. Small group. Okay. And then some others are doing things completely well, and maybe they need something more advanced, right? Others maybe can't think of some real world examples because we try to incorporate a lot of real life examples and performance-based questions so that there's really a connection for the student. So that's a little bit of some of the ways so that the teacher will remain at the center. It's not that it's going to form the groups for you, but it's going to give you the insights. It's going to show you what the students need help with, what are some of the lagging students needing, and then the teacher can help form those groups and respond to those student needs in the moment or maybe for the next day's lesson.
Very impressive. I'm afraid to ask this, but I'm going to do it anyway. No. Do you target any homeschooled environments?
We are working on a way to get to the homeschool, but that's currently in development because we're trying to figure out where to best utilize our resources. But currently, we're not there yet.
Because I could definitely see that segment of the population being very interested. But do you just sell the product? Oh, I'm sorry.
We're active in virtual schools.
Okay.
Not at home, yeah.
Like, do you just sell the product like it's by student, or is it by class, or is it all different?
Yeah, depending upon the district and the needs, that's gonna vary. But I mean, the key for us is not to sell a product. It's not to find a client. We're looking, and fortunately, we're finding partners. And we are evolving this because adaptability. We are evolving the product per what the market is asking, what needs exist for students, for schools, for districts. And so fortunately, we have several partners that are giving us suggestions for, you know what, it would help to have these 3 modules to add to your healthcare cluster. It would help if in this module, the text may not be completely clear in one spot. And so we're getting a lot of feedback from our partners. That's a big part of my role, is to make sure that the teachers are able to use it effectively, the questions that they may have. I do a lot of onboarding as well, which has been an interesting, I mean, talk about adaptability. Every district has different needs. The cast of characters is going to be different. And so that's been a great challenge. But the partnerships that we have, we cherish very much, because they're really helping us to help meet all the students' needs at the end of the day.
I was actually going to ask you that question, because we know that there's an adoption curve that exists out there in the world, and you have your early adopters, and they're just like, as soon as you walk into the room, they're already gravitating towards you and they want to know everything. And then you have folks who are like, a little bit curious, but they'll still stay in their seats. And then you have the folks in the back of the room who are arms crossed and doing a crossword puzzle in their newspaper and looking up occasionally, like Stanley from The Office. And when you're onboarding, how do you meet the needs of all those very different groups?
Chewy brownies. You bring chewy brownies to the onboarding session. That's one of the best ways. They can't talk to their friends. They're eating something delicious. I think one of the keys is obviously helping the teachers see how this is really going to help engage their students in deeper ways, how this is going to benefit their students. And some are going to gravitate towards it quicker than others. But I've been really working hard, and we've been working hard as a company to help the teachers see the negative impact of lack of engagement, and how it's not just causing them to not learn that concept in the moment, but it's causing disenfranchisement. It's increasing absentee rates. And so if we can find a way to continue to connect to the students where they are right now in 2026, if we can help the teachers with their workload. I mean, I think about when I was personally shown Magic School for the first time. And a friend of mine showed it to me. And within 45 seconds at a PD session, I found something I could use. I found out I could develop a rubric, and I was able to hit the ground running. It was obviously a very different kind of a tool. But a tool like this, it is a different way for the students to learn. It is a different way for the teachers to have a thought partner. And so there's a little more in the beginning, just to kind of get it. Some people don't really see how a 3D avatar and speaking with them is going to be much different from just chatting. Okay, they're going to have a harder time seeing the value of it, but you can imagine this without even seeing it live, that actually talking to a 3D avatar and they're communicating back, and that's going to adapt to what you say. It's going to be very different from just getting a wall of text back.
Yeah, I mean, the Pythagorean theorem example you gave was outstanding from the perspective of like how the teacher can really monitor the progress and then intervene when necessary. And the
student growth. And the student growth becomes exponential. No pun intended.
Well done. Well done.
I mean, come on. No pun intended, really.
Okay.
One last question before we let you go, because I can't believe that it's gone so quickly, our time. But if you could redesign one thing in schools, right, and that would help better prepare students for the future, what would that one thing be?
It's a question that I hope everybody is thinking about who's listening to this, that we all interact with, because I think we all know that the dichotomy between what the North is and what's being assessed and what the students are going to need. We hear it from industry. We hear it from people in all different walks of life. And so I would really look to try to align what the students will need. And Nick and Mark, we've heard people say, well, we don't know what students are going to need in the future. Yes, we do. We know they're going to need adaptability. We know they're going to need the ability to establish criterion and use evaluative decision-making and justify their responses based upon that criterion. And so there are some of these skills that we know they're harder to quantify. And so I think that shying away from what's hard to quantify and just going for the easy things to test in the format of testing, and changing what's being measured, which is kind of a dual, and there's a lot to unpack within that. And I know how challenging that is, but taking steps towards that would be what I would do. I wouldn't say redesign, but I would say have that as, a big part of the portrait of a school, the portrait of our goal and our reason for being in this space, and take steps to move towards that, celebrate the people that are taking steps and taking risks to do so on all different fronts, all different stakeholders, and really trying to move that needle, because I think it's a tough challenge.
Great
answer.
How does that resonate with what you guys are trying to do as educational leaders?
Like if it's a Venn diagram, it's just a circle, basically, I think. Would you agree with that, Nick?
Uh, sure.
Well, I mean, I hope based upon that response and just from the beginning of our connection here, Mark and Nick, I hope we have a chance to continue this because I know I can learn a lot from you too, and I'd love to be able to continue to banter and just coming from different sides. You being within a school, me coming from a school, and now being in ed tech, we can really collaborate and learn with each other, learn from each other's experiences to develop things that are better for all the students.
Yeah, it's in order for us as educators to be successful in this new era, we're going to have to collaborate better and more effectively than we've ever done before. And that's the lines between technology and education are blurred to the point where we don't know where one begins and the other ends anymore. And that's, again, we could debate whether that's good or bad, but it is what it is. And so
not seeing it as an us versus them, but that we can really work together as partners because we are facing the same direction. We are trying to do things for the student interest. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I share with people very readily that the CEO and I, we have children, 8, 11, 12 years old. We have a lot of skin in the game here. This is not just us trying to pitch a product. It's about really doing things that are best for what our children are going to need as well. And so
but that's very refreshing, Austin. But also, let's not sugarcoat. For a very long time, the last 2 decades, the marriage between technology and education hasn't always been so pure, right? I mean, there's been a lot of technologist greed, I'll call it, and they're allowed to make their money. I'm not begrudging that, but it's been at the detriment or to the detriment of our kids. I mean, when social media was introduced, we very easily could have put, not from federal, but from within, regulations, strong regulations, preventing kids from having access to it the way that they do. And they could still tomorrow do it if they wanted to, but they don't want to because it is so damn profitable for them. And it is the milk, that just, it's mother's milk to them. And they won't stop because of that. They should have, because they have done tremendous damage. So while your company and others like it are really trying with, earnestly to help push the boundaries of education, teaching, and learning forward, which we completely support and are very much behind, it's also tough because we have a little bit of a bitter taste in our mouth because of this. And I could just speak from a few hours ago when I was in my building. I spent hours going through messages and DMs and everything of kids treating each other poorly and saying terrible things, and that's a part of a school administrator's day in this country and in this world all the time, and it has detracted so much. I apologize to go on a little tirade here, but
it's
so I'm all for like moving forward together, off into the sunset. It's gonna be a beautiful relationship like Casablanca, and I'm cool with that. But at the same time, I also want to call out what is also the truth, which is that it hasn't been that way with technology companies all the time thus far in the last
an educational leader I saw at the conference I attended last week, who works at the state level. He said, "There's a lot of hucksters in this space." Right. His exact words. And unfortunately, that does taint some people's views towards how things can really benefit student learning. But we're doing our best to continue to do things in the right way for students. That's all we can do.
You're doing far more than your best, because what I was going to say is that you're so incredibly knowledgeable and well-read and articulate, but your passion is genuine. Your interest is genuine. Like you can sense that you really believe in the product, which, by the way, I do as well. But you really believe that this can be used to improve kids' lives. And it comes across. So you don't have to worry about ever being questioned about your
thank you for that. It's, I do love what I do. I love what I was doing in the classroom for many years. And I'm proud to call myself an educator and a father. So it's real.
You're still young. That's what's kind of crazy, is that you're still only, you said 3 years approximately. I think this is going to just explode on the scene. It's really a powerful tool.
So if folks are interested, where can they find you, and how can they learn more about Megaminds?
So go megaminds.com. gomegaminds.com to find out about our company. I'm on LinkedIn, and I love interacting with people and engaging with people and engaging in banter, discourse about education. Austin Levinson would happily welcome that. And I love to also engage with people's posts and really get into thought, deep thought and deep discourse around education and some of the topics we've spoken about today.
Love it. Austin Levinson, thank you so much for joining us on State of Ed.
Thank you to both of you. It's great what you're doing, and I just love the way you're digging deep and not just keeping things superficial and lovey-dovey, but really digging deep with some penetrating questions, which I think is powerful.
We appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.